welcome back, everyone. First episode of 2023 for Feather and Fur. Your host, Brad Hurlebaus. I hope everybody had an amazing break over the holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, whatever you celebrate. I hope you celebrated it with families and friends and celebrated traditions and made memories. Tonight, for the first guest of the year, we have Mr. Randy. Randy, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you on. The northwest of the country is not somewhere I've had a lot of guests from. Like my show really focuses heavily Midwest because that's where I'm from. So I really like bringing in people from the other parts of the country. Like I've had Oregon, I've had Idaho, and now finally Washington.
Yeah, I don't think the Pacific Northwest is a destination hunting area. I'm kind of not going to complain about that. I don't like too many people find out some of my spots, but
sure,
that is how it is. I think that's that way with everywhere.
The only destination part, like the only thing that I always had Washington on my list was for no, I can't remember what kind of duck it is. A harlequin. When you guys had harlequins out there, but I know they closed that this year.
Yeah, my nephew's done some of that back in the day and gone after those. I kind of duck hunting was fun for a couple years and
sure.
And then I discovered chukars. And that ended. I didn't like sitting out in the cold. We had one year where I went over to, I used to live in Seattle on the west side. And so I used to drive 3.5, 4 hour drive every weekend to go bird hunting. And we'd usually start with ducks in the morning and end up pheasant hunting and quail hunting in the afternoon. And it took one time of going out, and I showed up on the last weekend of pheasant hunting, and my buddy's friend talked us into going duck hunting, and then said we had to leave at 2 a.m. And I was like, "What? Or 2 a.m?" It's like, "Oh yeah, ducks are going to be in there. We got to get our spot. Got to get our decoys set up, and it's a lot of work." And I'm like, 2 a.m? And I'm like, "Holy cow!" I'm like, "Oh, this is last weekend of pheasant hunting, and we're going to go duck hunting." And he's like, but that was all it took. I think one bird came in. And I was no longer a duck hunter. I need to be walking around chasing birds, not sitting in a duck blind where it's freezing cold. I don't think I'd ever been so cold in my life as that morning. It was literally 4 hours of waiting for light.
Oh, that's a long wait.
Yeah, I think it was about 9 degrees that morning on the Columbia River. Luckily, the wind wasn't blowing, or it would have been really miserable.
I will agree. Some of my coldest hunts ever have definitely been duck hunting, and I still waterfowl hunt. I love it. I love late season. I love those last 3 weeks of the season when we're out here breaking ice and it's cold, it's brutal. All the fair weather hunters are staying home. Like that's really why I love it, because like the marshes aren't overpopulated. You got to be hardy and you got to want it if you're out there late season.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, thankfully my boat's got a nice enough line where you stick a heater in front of you, you can keep that chill off you, and like it's not miserable anymore. But I remember just sitting on the bank before and just freezing.
Yeah, we luckily with us, when I kind of got into bird hunting, we didn't do a lot of duck hunting. We just, it'd be just for a couple hours. I'd be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of duck. My wife loves duck hunting. Loves duck hunting. I don't know how. She was just she didn't do anything outdoors really when I met her in here. She likes bow hunting and duck hunting, and she loves turkey hunting too. And it just like, what? This is you like all the odd ones, at least, or I think it's odd, I thought you'd rather chase duck or chase pheasants, and she's not into that. She don't mind the pheasant hunting. She does not chukar hunt at all.
I definitely want to touch base on the chukars. Like, yeah. I mean, we might as well just roll right into that, because my passion is grouse and woodcock first and foremost. I'm an upland bum. I love chasing those birds through the big woods of northern Wisconsin and the UP and Michigan, and it can be tough walking if you're breaking trail, which we normally are, and it's A lot of times we're in stuff so thick you can't even get your shotgun up and swing it. Like we're just I mean it's but I love it. I enjoy it. So I'm really interested to hear like what it's like chukar hunting out by you. Like what's the countryside like? Like what makes it tough? Like what makes it hard? What's the challenge?
Well, it's mostly sagebrush, and actually years ago when I didn't even bird hunt really. I mean, when I did start bird hunting, it was because of chukars. We were sitting around campfire one morning sipping coffee. We used to go set up our elk camp a month early, and then we'd just go up every weekend and just camp and go cut firewood and get ready for what was going to happen 3 weeks down the road.
Sure.
And we would deer hunt, so deer hunting usually started a couple weekends before that. But yeah, there was this one morning we're sitting around the campfire with this old timer, and I'm like, what is that sound? I'm like, he goes, what do you mean, what's that sound? He goes, that's a chukar. And I go, what's a chukar? It's like, I'm like, I've only been hunting for 6 years, 5 years maybe at that point in
Sure.
time. I had no clue what a chukar was. And he goes, well, you're young. You should see those things all the time running up and down the hills up there when you're chasing the deer and elk around. I go, I don't think I've ever seen one. I go, I've seen grouse up there. He goes, grouse don't live up in the sagebrush. He's like, he goes, those are chukars. He goes, are they gray? And I go, well, yeah, I guess they're kind of gray. Yeah. I've seen a couple. He goes, well, that's what they are. And the next weekend, I just I called my buddy. I said, "You want a chukar hunt?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was had been saving up a little money trying to get ready for hunting camp because and I those on Thursday, and my boss and me pulled into we installed gas fireplaces back in those days, and there was a pawn shop right next door. I had never bought a shotgun, and I walked in there and bought a Remington 870 for $130 or something like that, used, in 4 boxes of shells. And it was literally the greatest weekend I ever had in my life. I mean, that's how we got into it. I don't think we killed one bird. We were doing it without dogs. And I'm like, it was an addiction from that point on. And it wasn't just chukars at that point that mainly, but we got into birds. But yeah, it's definitely hard because they like to hike uphill all day and fly down. So you're literally starting at the bottom. We'll start down in the area we like to hunt. There's a creek bottom, and we'll start down at the road just off the creek, and you hike up and in. Back in the day, we used to hike up and in. Now we try to drive up and then walk in. But when they start flying down, you bust up the covey and you just watch where they land, and you start hiking down, hiking across. I mean, geez, what it takes to get 1,000 yards sometimes is pretty crazy. They like the rocks. They like the harder the terrain. That's where they like to be.
Sure. What
So
elevations are you like? What elevations are you normally finding them then?
we're some of the areas I hunt are.
Not, I don't want you to give up like spots or anything like
Oh
that.
no,
That's not. I mean,
no, 3,000, 4,000 feet is typically about where I find a lot of mine, and
okay.
then you probably get a little bit higher than that on an average day. There's a few hills that I used to hunt when I was a little bit younger. They're a little tougher now. That I mean, I'm doing 2,000 foot elevation gains. You know,
I don't even have 2,000 feet of elevation gain in Wisconsin.
yeah. I kind of the bummer part is there used to be really really good pheasant hunting around here, and I hear my grandpa tell me stories when he was alive about all the good pheasant hunting and quail hunting and stuff. And I just come to the first few years I did mostly that was, and I just got tired of not finding birds because I can go out every day just about and find chukars. And the last few years, there's been a lot of chukars. They've been plentiful, but
Nice.
there's also, I think a lot more people are getting into chukar hunting too. You got some pretty good organizations out there, and I think they kind of introduce people more to chukar hunting, like chukar chasers. You
Sure.
listen. those guys, I listen to some of their stories about what they do on a given day and the miles they put in, and I'm like, holy moly, that's
Which is it's good. I mean, it's good
yeah,
and bad, right? Like it's
yeah,
great that they're getting more attention because that should drive more money and more habitat. Like I mean,
yes,
if they're focused upon habitat should reflect it. And you should get people that are conservationists. Like I'm a conservationist. Like people that
yeah,
most hunters are conservationists as well. They want the habitat rehabilitation. They want the habitat to constantly be where it needs to be. Like grouse needs old forest and young forest. So we support like responsible timber harvest and long-term plans. And out by you, I'm sure there's got to be some sort of plan to make sure the habitat. So it's great that they're getting more popular, but at the same time, you want to keep it to yourself, right? Like you don't want
yeah.
more people chasing your birds.
Well, I got one area in particular where I started, and
Sure.
the same area I started deer and elk hunting, and so it's kind of where it's where all my dogs have started first day, and we now actually we have a couple dogs that now lie up on those hills too. We so
A lot of
when
memories
I'm
there.
gone, that's where I'll be put, is up on those hills. It's the greatest place in the world. But to me and a few other of my hunting buddies, it's the greatest place in the world. But we don't really tell anybody about that area so much.
Sure.
But there's so much. Oh my gosh. I think there's tons and tons of chukar hunt. There's chukar hunting I haven't even begun to explore in the state yet. And it's now that I got a last couple of years I've had an old dog, and so you couldn't go as hard as you wanted. Now I got my young pup, well, she's 2. Her name's Iris, and now it's time to start going and hitting some of those places up. But yeah, there's places even just 30 minutes from here that I've never been to that people talk about and are like, oh man, you got to get out there. And I'm like, okay, yeah, one of these days. But
Right.
sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard getting away from your little honey holes, you know?
It is hard. It is hard to explore new land and new property, and especially when you have places that continuously produce over and over. I
Yeah,
struggled with that because I actually just started to like to really force myself to do it. I have a small 20-foot camper. I would just be like, I'm going to go camp in a completely different park that makes that such a far drive that I'm
yeah,
not going to go there unless I literally can put nothing together around me. Like if I
yeah,
can find nothing, I'll make the hour drive if I have to. But I've got thousands of acres within 15 minutes of where I set up camp. Like I should be able to find birds, and that really helped me start to explore those new areas because I
yeah,
basically gave myself no choice.
yeah. It's a lot around here this year. It's been the weather that's kept. Um, I actually haven't been hunting in like 3 weeks just due to Christmas stuff and
Sure.
situations. And I actually have a dog that's sick right now, so we've kind of had to tend to him a lot. But the weather too, it's just been, oh my gosh, we've been dumped on with snow. And my dogs just, I've tried every type of boot there is on the dogs, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm just not going to go out. And then once that snow starts getting crusted over, your dogs start getting cut up, and
Yep.
it's it's just a nightmare. And then you end up with hurt dog, and then you can't hunt for 2 weeks until his
Right.
feet heal up. So there's sometimes I do back out, and I'll go hunt coyotes or whatever. Then I got cattle rancher that lets me hunt their property for coyotes, and that's my other love that I'm really trying to learn more and more about. There's so much to learn there, though. That's crazy. Those
Hunting
dogs are,
predators is different. Like
yeah.
that is just a different ball game.
I try to tell people about, like, oh man, my heart starts pounding. I mean, the second I see that coyote coming in, whether it's 1,000 yards out or it's right, I've had them walk in 10 feet in front of me, and I'm telling you, your heart just starts pounding like at least mine does. I don't know, it's crazy. It's almost like that first time that buck ever, stood up in front of me. I remember that feeling, and it's like that with every single coyote that comes walking in. But yeah, we try to bird hunt as much as I can through majority of the season. I actually, in our state, we can purchase we can special draw for what they call a multi-season tag, and if you get drawn on it, you get to hunt modern archery and muzzleloader for deer or elk. And then on our side of the state, you also, for elk, you have to pick east side or west side of the state.
Okay.
Well, if you get drawn on that multi-season tag, you can hunt east side or west side with that tag also. That's kind of the, man, if you can get drawn on that, that can be pretty fun, especially if you got the hunting partners that are willing to help you out during that muzzle loading and modern firearm season. Because on one side of the state where I live, it's spike only. Well, an hour and 15 minutes from me, I can be hunting big bulls 3 point or better. So that
Nice.
tags, yeah, that tag's like gold though. I got drawn on it once and been still waiting to get drawn on it for the last 10 or 15, about 10 or 12 years now. I think it's how long I've been, somewhere around there. I've been putting in for that they came up with that tag. I
Is
get
that
drawn.
preference point or is it 100% random?
Um, I think they give the points. What they do too is whoever doesn't purchase those, they put it back into the raffle on a certain day. It's first come, first serve. So
Ah,
so they'll open those tags back up. This year, they told us they were raffling them back off. And then so everybody was going to be put back in that drawing. So we all misunderstood. I at a certain point in time, they actually released those tags back out to be purchased from whoever first come first serve. And I was like, oh man, if I would have known that, I would have purchased the elk tag, because normally the elk tags sell within you whoever's first in line at the store. There's
sure.
usually not very many elk tags left. The deer tags I've been able to purchase when I haven't been drawn for like the last 5 years. I've been drawn on the deer one twice, and I
Nice.
just purchased it the other times, which has helped me out because I've gotten my deer each year thanks
Sure.
to that thanks to that tag. Otherwise, yeah, this year deer and elk hunting was pretty rough. The summertime was, I think there was one day during elk season this year that I think it actually almost hit 80 degrees.
Wow.
That's like in the first week of November. I know it was in the high 70s. It was pretty crazy how warm it was. We're used to 60s, you
Oh,
know?
that's even warmer than I thought it would be. But I guess I mean, yeah, you're pretty far.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's yeah, beginning of chucker season sometimes it can be pretty warm. This year it was definitely in the 80s. And so you can only I only run my dogs for a little while. I'll see other guys running their dogs all day long, and I'm like, boy oh boy, that's got to be tough on the dog. I'm like, how do you even bring enough water?
that was
You know?
my thing. Like, how are you going to bring enough water with for that? I mean, I would run my dogs all summer long. Like, I would
Yeah,
keep them conditioned throughout the summer, not only to keep them in shape, to keep them conditioned to heat, but also so I can recognize heat signs of heat stroke and everything else. Like, you know each other, you know what your dog is capable of. But I remember some years, like for our pheasant opener, it being in the set like 70s, and I'm watching these dogs that are not conditioned. I'm like, man, like you guys like need to stop. Like your dog's gonna collapse here any minute. And I'm
yeah,
like, and my dog's conditioned, and I didn't even hunt my dog all day. I'm like, there's no reason to.
yeah. It's between that and the rattlesnakes in the early season. The area where we hunt, the rattlesnakes are pretty bad. To be honest, actually, I've only really bird hunting. I've only ran into two. But man, you hear the reports from everybody else. It's like all summer long, gosh, the rattlesnakes are bad this year. They're really, so we'll typically in the mornings, you're typically 30, 40 degrees. And then by about 9 o'clock in the morning, you're usually hitting about the mid 50s, lower 60s. And yeah, at that point, I'm just like, we've had a good couple hours of fun. Go, you know, get the dogs out of the heat and
Sure, get out of
go,
rattlesnake territory.
yeah, get them out of the rattles.
I mean, that's
Right.
great. Like you're hearing summer reports that the rattlesnakes are bad. Our summer reports are that ticks are bad.
Oh yeah.
Like that's
Oh,
so different.
though we have ticks.
Oh, I'm sure you do, but that's my big concern. I'm like, the ticks are bad. I'm like, I'm not listening to like, oh, the rattlesnakes are bad this year. I'm like, oh, do I need antivenom? Like that doesn't go through my mind.
Yeah. Nope. All my dogs are vaccinated. Thank God for that. rattlesnake vaccination. I've only had one dog and he didn't even notice the snake was there, but he stepped right over it, and it was just a little one buzzer snake, and he had no clue because we were on a hill where there was definitely some birds, and so he had snake was the last thing in his mind. I know that, but
Sure.
yeah, we don't let them live. I'll tell you that. I hate to say it, but gosh, I just hate. That's one thing I do hate. I hate the snakes. We get bull snakes, and they say they kill the rattlesnakes, so we let them live. But the
Sure.
rattlesnakes, yeah, the one area I love to hunt so much, it's horrible with ticks too. Oh my gosh. You don't dare go out not protected. You will
Sure.
ticks on you. We found a product out there. I can't remember what it's called. I just know what it looks like. They sell it at Walmart. It's a bit in a big old yellow bottle. And they say it's good for 4 to 5 washes. We
Oh,
spray our clothes.
permethrin.
Yeah. Yeah. Stuff is
It actually kind of surprises. So there's brands of hiking clothing out there that actually have that built in, and they'll last for like 40 or 50 washes compared to
yeah.
that spray on stuff. I'm surprised I haven't seen it yet in upland clothing. Like
Yeah.
right from the manufacturing, permethrin impregnated clothing that will last for 40 or 50 washes. And I'll be honest,
Yeah.
I maybe wash my upland clothes once a year. Like,
Oh,
like
I
I air it out to dry, and like that's about it. Like I throw them back in a bin. Like especially because of like the ticks by me. What I do is like I'll strip down outside and I'll throw them like in a Tupperware container, like a big plastic tote, and I'll put the lid on
yeah.
it, and then I'll change. And then next morning I'll wake up and be like, yeah, they're fine. I'm going back hunting again.
Yeah. I'll try to go. I'm pretty bad about that. And well, and then with merino wool, holy moly,
Right.
it doesn't smell. So
Right.
if you wear the merino wool, and I don't know what type of I wear a lot of kuyu, and the fabric that they use in the pants I'm like, it never stinks either, but I'll try to wash it about every 2 or 3 weekends.
No, I'm pretty bad at that.
As long as it doesn't get muddy, I'll bring it home and let it dry. My wife will be like, "You gonna put this stuff away?" I'm like, "You gotta let it dry." And then I just throw it right back in the tote, grab it the next weekend. I'm like, you get about 3 weekends down the road, 4 weekends down the road, and I'm like, probably better wash this stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Deer, those
I mean,
coyotes.
I can justify it. I mean, I can be like, well, every time I wash, it's just more wear and it's an expensive investment in quality clothing. Why would I want to wear it out sooner? Like, I
Yeah.
can make a justification in my mind. It's really the fact that I'm just lazy. Like, I'm not lazy,
Oh,
but like washing my hunting clothes is like the last thing on my mind after hunting.
oh yeah. I have to make sure to um the girls like to have the smelly stuff in their clothes too. My wife's kind of got used to my scent free lifestyle, but my daughter, she don't like it. She's like, "Dad, my clothes to smell good," and I'm like, "Well, I just like them to smell like nothing." I'm like, so I always got to make sure there's something's been washed in the before I throw my hunting clothes in the wash. I'm not Mr. Scent Free, you know, make sure to spray everything down before I go out and everything. Like, I'm not that bad, but I don't like washing my clothes with anything that smells. So
We don't,
keep the
thankfully, my wife she's very sensitive to smells when it comes to that. They'll give her a headache. So like year round we're scent free laundry detergent. We're no
yeah,
fabric soft, like we don't use scent free fat. We like no scents with any, most of our hand soaps, and that's all unscented. Like she uses very scent, like I really
yep,
don't use shampoo or like that has a massive scent to it or any like I'm almost like scent free year round. It goes a little more come deer season, but not
yep.
much.
No, I come deer and elk season, I really don't. I'm the same way. I'm absolute scent free. My allergies are so bad, and then I moved to this side of the mountains, and they got, oh man, the first couple of years it was really rough. I can definitely tell you I'm allergic to sagebrush, but what's my favorite smell in the world? Sagebrush. I was like, I love this stuff. I mean, gosh, you'd be out there in the mornings going chukar hunting after it rains, and the way it smells, and just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, no, I'm the same way. I'll get a headache. So everything's scent free. Soap, my soap I use, I buy um scent-free organic goat's milk soap. My wife's like, you're the only guy I know that like, hey, it doesn't smell. And
It
yeah,
has nothing. It has nothing to do with the fact it's goat or anything like that. It's just the fact it
no,
doesn't smell. Like,
yeah, well, hey, I don't even, I'm just like, forget shampoo. I just use this stuff. It's great, but your scalp doesn't get all dried out. It's goat's milk. I support that stuff any day of the week.
there you go.
Yeah. The dorky
Not,
thing.
I know it's funny. Like it's all about it. It's all part of that experience that we want, right? Like
Yeah.
it's all a part of it at the end of the day.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I know I'm not surprised ticks are prevalent everywhere, but what like are you got a lot of wood ticks or like deer ticks or like what do you guys like
I'm
us by us it's a lot of deer ticks that carry limes. Like that's our big threat when it comes to ticks.
I'm told, I keep being told, like I've been told by the vet that we don't really have Lyme disease here.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, I'm like, okay. I'm not even sure. I think they're deer ticks. I think they are.
You just don't have up there's hot pocket like it's getting worse and worse in Wisconsin. Like
Yeah.
I don't remember what the numbers used to be or what they are now, but I'll just generalize. It used to be like 1 in 25 and now it's 1 in 5. Like it's just become that much more prevalent in our deer ticks that just limes is just exploding. But there are
Yeah.
areas where it's not as bad in our state as other areas. It's like kind of like hotspots. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me if you had deer ticks that just didn't have the Lyme's disease aspect, which is pretty awesome because I don't care about the ticks. Like ticks don't bother me. They're no worse than a mosquito as long as they're disease free. It's the disease part that bothers me.
I hate to say it, man. When I first moved over here, um, when I met my wife and I moved over here to the eastern side of the state, and I used to go out. Oh my gosh, I'd go out every weekend when they'd our one area they close it down for a couple months to let the elk, winter and stuff like that. So
Sure.
but man, I remember the first year they opened that up, and I lived over here, and I think I spent every weekend going up in there and hiking around, looking for elk sheds and stuff like that, and run just letting them because at that time I had my pup, my first wire hair, and so yeah, we'd go up there every weekend, and oh my gosh, that was before I found out about the tick spray, and I would come home and I'd have ticks on me every single day. I would come back, and you didn't dare not put tick stuff on the dogs. Oh my!
Sure.
I forgot one year to give the dogs their front line, and I had it sitting out on the kitchen counter the whole 9 yards. And the opening morning, I was so excited that the next morning was opener for chukars, and um, a good portion of our hunting parties was coming up just for that too. So we were all planning on bird hunting. We were all excited. I was like, wow, this is cool. I'm going to get to hunt with more than just myself on opening day, and I think just got too excited, forgot to put the tick stuff on the dogs, and took them out hunting anyway, and it had rained the night before. That's the worst. Rain just seems to activate them, and oh my, we all came back checking ourselves for ticks, and then I went, oh, I forgot to put the medicine on the dogs. And I called the wife immediately, said, you got to bring the tick stuff up here. We forgot to put the medicine on the dogs. And then we started rolling them over and checking them. And you ever tried checking a wire hair? Well, you got a griffin.
I got a griff. I know exactly where you're going with this.
Oh my gosh. We counted, my one dog had over 30 ticks on him. And then our other dog only,
That had already had bit that were already embedded
nope,
or just
nope.
crawling.
They were just crawling.
Okay.
And we just parked them, made them sit right by the campfire, and just picked them off and threw them in the
Yep.
campfire. I'm like, yeah, that was the last time I ever forgot to put tick stuff on them. It was, oh man, luckily none got embedded. I think only once we've ever come across an embedded tick on one of the dogs.
I mean, 30 is a couple hour run in most of my areas, to be honest. I mean, like that's one thing like going, my first dog was a lab. which
Yeah.
led me into grouse hunting because he was kind of neurotic as a duck dog. Like I've hunted with other labs now where I'm like, man, I was way too hard on my lab and he actually was pretty steady. But like he just wasn't steady enough and he just wanted to run. So I'm like, all right, let's see what like we were up for grouse for duck camp and my buddy's dad was like, let's go grouse hunting. Like, okay. I'm like, my dog, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Neither did my dog. He goes, that's fine. Just stomp around. If something flies, something flies. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. He's like, just don't let your dog run until the next county. I'm like, well, my dog has a very good recall and a whistle sit. I'll just keep him in range. That I can do. And that, like, within 20 minutes, it clicked. And my lab's like, I found my passion in life. Like,
Oh,
and I watched him work those wood and like everything just clicked. But to, not to get too sidetracked, but like I remember coming out of the woods with him and like losing count after 40 or 50 ticks. And you can
oh,
just see him. And
yeah,
because it's a short hair, it's just like like
yeah,
5-10 minutes. Like you've pulled like 50, 60 ticks off the dog, and it's just like, all right, let's go drink some whiskey. But now with the griff, the
yeah.
areas we hunt, it's 30 to 45 minutes on the tailgate between burrs, twigs,
Oh,
sticks, ticks. Like, I mean, I keep a wire comb in my vest. I keep a wire comb in the dog bag. I keep a wire comb in her, like in my truck at all times. Like, I keep the Mars Coke King. I've got cowboy. Like, where we hunt in the burrs with the wire hair, it is miserable.
oh yeah. I, God, I can't remember how many years ago it was, but I was out hunting pheasants and we got down on a river bottom and oh my gosh, my dogs picked up cockaburs so bad, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm not hunting this area no more. We just stayed away from the river bottoms. I'm just like, this is just crazy. Last time I took my old dog Roy, it was probably about 4 years ago. We took him to Pullman, where WSU is, and there's a lot of pheasants there. And a friend of mine's like, "Hey, we're deer hunting. Why don't you come? You can pheasant hunt. We'll drop you off and let you pheasant hunt areas and pick you up." And so me and his kid, we get dropped off, and then they'd pick us back up at the end of this areas where we were hunting. Oh yeah, it was exactly that. Finally had to put the brush from the truck in my vest, picking little burrs out of my dog the whole time. He, yeah, the wire hair came home looking like a short hair after that.
It's amazing how thin her coat is towards the end of
Yeah,
hunting. Like, I'll strip her at least once throughout like in the middle of summer. I'll give her a good stripping. But even then, like her eyes are pretty covered because she's a pretty shaggy haired griff. So like her eyes, you can barely see them and whatnot. Like by the end of hunting seasons, like she has no eyebrows left. Like her beard's almost gone. Like she looks like more like a Drathar than a griff at that point. Like people like have
that's
no idea what kind of dog she is.
yeah, that's kind of the nice part about the chukar hunting. The area is not, um, unless it gets super super cold, and their beard starts freezing, and then just breaks off from that. The chukar hunting doesn't take the it it's demanding in other ways. It doesn't, like, I remember going pheasant hunting and the dog, I mean, one day of pheasant hunting, and you're almost like, man, should I buy a vest for him?
Right.
Because by the end of the third or fourth weekend, they don't have any chest hair left.
Yep.
you know and it's like, you wouldn't think that grass would be so abrasive, but it
Well, the
is.
last agreed. So being a big grouse hunter in the woods, we don't hunt grasses like that. We deal with
Yeah.
like burrs from like different like seed tick, like all that kind of stuff. But I'll occasionally take her out on a pheasant hunt. And like her that'll be like towards the end of the season and her paws will be destroyed
Oh,
from that grass. Her eyes as well, like just bright red from the grass. And it's like it blows my mind how much more abrasive hunting that pheasant grass. And like by us, we have some standing corn in some of our areas as well. Like
yeah.
hunting that compared to like the sticks and the like I wear safety glasses where we hunt grouse because I've taken too many branches to my eyes. And
Oh
she'll
yeah.
be flying through there no problem, but like in the pheasant field it just beats her up.
Oh, yeah. I don't. We don't. I don't do a ton of pheasant hunting. I don't. Last year, I don't even think I went once, to be honest. We're going in, and so it'll be Iris's first time hunting pheasants, and So, but yeah, the chukar hunting, it's just, but I've had the dogs, I mean, run into sage sagebrush. It's the rocks. The rocks just take a toll on their paws.
Sure.
It can be pretty brutal. My oldest dog Roy here, I don't know what happened, but about 4 or 5 years into having him, and all of a sudden his paws just couldn't deal with it anymore. And so yeah, luckily I would just hunt them. I would hunt one dog one day and the other dog the next day. It just got too hard to hunt both dogs at the same time. At least for me, I just seemed like
Sure.
I had more bird opportunities for myself shooting, hunting just one dog at a time, and it was a lot easier to obviously pay attention. You get some of those spots and you got anywhere from 3 to 4 or 5 feet tall sagebrush, and then you're trying to keep an eye on your dogs. And I guess
I
a
didn't
lot
realize
of
the sagebrush got that tall.
oh yeah, I got certain. I usually use locator collars on them. I don't have the GPS, all the fancy GPS stuff like some of the guys do, but some of those
Sure.
guys, dogs run. I've heard stories on Upchucker podcast about them running their dogs, letting their dogs go out a mile, and I'm like, how do you catch up when your dog's on point a mile in front of you? I'm like, my
That
dog's
blows my mind.
it totally blows my mind. I would love to go hunt with these guys someday just to see what it's just to watch their dogs and see. I'm like, my dogs are good, but um
How
I
far do your dogs range? Like what like where do you want your
I
dogs range? Like what's your comfortable range?
I don't let them I let them range. I'll let them range 100 yards. I just
Okay.
don't let them I've never let them range out past that. I think I lost my one dog once. He got into some cattails, and he my first hunting dog's name was Hank, and Hank had some health issues, and one of his it was really weird about him. He couldn't ever hear right. He could hear you, but he always thought he would always go the opposite direction, and he wasn't. At first, I thought he was just being defiant, and come to find it wasn't that. I don't. He just. I talked to my vet like multiple times about it, and he's like he must just have just I don't know why. Can't explain it. But he'd be 10 feet in front of me. And if he didn't see me and I called his name, he would go the opposite direction. So the first time he ever got lost in cattails, and you're trying to literally call your dog and he doesn't even know which direction to go, that was it. I never let him range out past 75, 100 yards anymore.
Sure.
I, I just kept him tight, or kept him closer. It Yeah, that was about one of the scariest days I ever had. I mean, it took me a good hour and a half to get him out of there. I could hear him moving around. It got to the point where I literally had to actually zap him with the collar to get him to yelp so I could hear where he was at, and then
Sure.
tell him to stay. And I had to walk through this stuff. I was knee high deep in water and then had to get him and then just carried him out. It was
That's that's crazy. Like that's no good. Like that's
oh,
not good.
that was literally one of the I was like, how am I going to explain this one to the wife? When I mean, I hear stories of people losing their dogs. I never understood how, but yeah, I just kind of stopped letting him roam. That he would hold the birds for me to get up.
Sure.
I never had an issue with that. I remember a friend of mine, first time he ever went pheasant hunting with me, and we were out pheasant hunting, and he'd never hunted with dogs in his whole life. So this was one of the first times he had ever hunted behind a dog. And he's like, your dog he's out there 75 yards. I go, you don't worry, that dog will hold. If there's a bird in front of him, he's pointing it. That dog's not budging. And sure enough, he gets out there. I let him range a little extra further that day. He was out about 125 yards, and he locks up. And I told my buddy, I said, there you go get it. And oh my gosh, you used to see him. He just took off running out there as fast as he could and then he ends up whiffing it on the bird. I'm like, he's like, oh. man, I can't believe I missed it. And I'm like, well, you're running like you're in a 100-yard dash. You're gonna kind of hard to shoot a bird that's getting up and they're that fast. But I've never trained my dogs either, so that's kind of been I don't know. I just take them hunting. It seems like me and my buddy Billy. Um, Speaking of labs, I had to beg him and beg him and beg him to take his dog out. I'm like, come on, you got to bring Lincoln out hunting. And he goes, Randy, I don't know if he'll listen. And I'm going, well, we got to try it. Neither one of us hunted. We just always went without dogs the first probably year of bird hunting, unless we were going to the Tri-Cities and hunting with our friends down there. Then they had dogs. So I finally talked him into taking old Lincoln out one day, and we go walking up this canyon, and we seen this huge covey of quail get up from this watering hole, and they flew up into the canyon. And I said, well, there we go. There's birds there for sure. I said, we probably, he goes, well, how do we work this? I go, I don't know. Never hunted with a dog. I said, why don't you get on one side of the draw and I'll get on the other, and we'll just call him back and forth, and we'll see if we run into these quail. And he's like, okay. He goes, man, I hope he listens. And I'm like, so do I. So we start hiking up, and he's on one side and I'm on the other, and we'll call in Lincoln back and forth. And this lab, you would have thought he was part Great Dane. He was so tall. But all of a sudden, he goes running past this sagebrush as my buddy Billy's calling him back to him. He runs past this sagebrush and he turns on a dime, and he just nails this sagebrush, and 3 quail come flying out of that thing, and my buddy shoots and drops this quail. And this dog never hunted before in his life. This was his first day. Never trained, nothing. Ran straight over, picked this quail up, runs it back over, and drops it right at my buddy's feet. And I'm like, did that just really happen? He's like, I'm like, you've been training, you've been working with him. He goes, dude, I've never done nothing but play fetch with a ball with this dog. So yeah, we're like, oh my gosh, born that dog. We took him out duck hunting a couple weekends later, and we were like, there's no way this dog's gonna set in a duck blind. We were both saying it. We're telling our buddy Chad, we should just leave him at home, and we'll leave him at home, and we'll come back and get him for pheasant hunting. He goes, no, you guys aren't leaving him at home. You're taking him. And so we're going to try this out. We'll get him to sit. So we got him to sit in that duck blind, and he was whining for the first half hour or so. And finally, that first flock of ducks come flying in, and everybody starts trying to call him in. None of us knew what we were doing on duck calls, but we thought we did. But these ducks, they decided that they were going to commit in the land, and he's seen those ducks, and he's kind of watching them, and he's still whining. And finally somebody jumps up and shoots one of those ducks, and it drops in the river, and we let him go out and gets the duck and brings it back. And that dog, if he didn't come back in, sit right down next to my buddy, did not make one single peep the whole rest of the. I'm like, every time somebody starts squawking on a duck call, trying to call those ducks in, his eyes were the only thing moving. He's just watching the sky, and he'd wait for us to shoot, drop the bird, and let him go. I'm like, holy crap! I've never heard of I mean, no training, no nothing, absolute, complete
That's crazy.
natural at everything. It was unbelievable. I'm
That's a
like,
terrible first dog. Like, it's an
yeah,
amazing first dog, but it's a terrible first dog because the fact, like, you will have such unrealistic expectations
yes,
for every dog moving forward.
yeah. It's absolute horrible expectation. I gotta plug the phone in real fast. And
No worries.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's never ever gonna run into a dog like that again, that's for sure. My
Uh-oh. Oh, there you are. We
There
lost you
we
for a
are.
second.
Yeah, I lost me for a second. Um
It
Yeah.
wouldn't be a show of mine without a slight technical difficulty or issue. Like every show's got something small, and if that's the smallest thing we're gonna have tonight, this is a good show.
Yeah. No, I've been kind of lucky that way, I guess. I'm just like my brother finally how we went to a sportsman show, and we met this gentleman. He had a German wire hair, and that was it. I fell in love, and I'm like, I gotta have one of these ugly dogs. I'm like, I gotta have one. And this just and so years later when I finally actually my brother was supposed to purchase one, had it all lined up, set up. It was my nephew's first Christmas present, and he's first dog they'd ever had, and he had it all lined up. Well, the guy's kennel got sick, something happened, and so he called my brother and said, hey, my whole kennel's got, I can't remember what they had, but he goes, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to let you have your pup in time, and my brother's like, well, I'm not going to do that. And, well, he ended up calling me one day and he goes, hey, I'm not going to get a wire hair no more. I'm going to get a Brittany. And I said, what? I said, you can't get no Brittany. And I said, he goes, no.
Doing?
He goes, it's going to be awesome. I said, I'm going to love it. Cause too, Brittany's are way smaller than those wire haired dogs. He goes, they're only like little 30 pounders. And I said, that's going to be awesome. And my brother's all, he called me up. And he says, hey, we're going to go pick up this pup. You want to be a part of this? And I said, heck yeah, I want to be a part of this. That'll be cool. And so we go up there and we pick out this pup, and he was a little liver and white Brittany, and they named him Henry. And that next year, I'll tell you, I took everything in my power to I finally talked my brother into let me hunt. I said, just let me take him hunting. Come on, it's opening weekend of chukar. Billy's going to be deer hunting. I want a chukar hunt. I said, just let me take him. And my brother finally caved and let me take him. And I shot more birds in 2 days than I shot the whole season the first year or the year before. My buddy's like teasing me on everything. I was like, oh my gosh. I said, this is like cheating. I said, I'd never seen anything like this. This was the craziest. I mean, because we'd been hunting behind the labs, and, they get the birds up sometimes, 30, 40 yards out,
Sure.
if you don't have them in check. But yeah, I'm like, Billy, it was literally like something you watch on TV on one of those hunting shows. I'm like, I can almost take you to the exact same spot, the very first spot that Henry ever pointed a bird for me. And yeah, that dog was great. My brother's like, he did what he was supposed to do. And I'm like, yeah, it was amazing. Just did exactly what he was supposed to do. And so the next year was when I met my wife that hunting season. And I ended up moving over to the eastern side of the state to be with her and my daughter. And I looked at her. I think we had lived together for like 2 months, or not 2 months, 2 weeks. And I said, oh, hey, by the way, I'm getting a dog. She's like, what? And she's like, no, you're not. And I go, no, I didn't move all the way over here not to have a hunting dog too. I said, yeah, I moved here for you and, Ryan. And I said, but man, I'm getting me a German. She goes, what kind of dog are you getting? So I pulled it up online, because back then we didn't have smartphones. Sure. Or I didn't have a smartphone.
Right.
So I get online on the computer and I pull up a picture of German wire hair. She goes, they're ugly. And I go, they're beautiful. I'm sitting there. I go, and I swear it was like the next day or the day after that, we got this store here called, well, back then it used to be called Big R. And it was like a farm and ranch store. And they always had the big reader board in the back. And so I go walking past. That was back when I did fireplaces. So I went back there to meet the manager that morning to pick up my fireplace to go put in. And there was a brochure on this thing where you pull the phone number off it. And the guy had a picture of wire hair pups. And I was like, oh my gosh. I called the guy immediately. And I was like, I got to come see your pups. And he's like, okay. And he goes, they're ready to come. They're not ready to go home, but yeah, when do you want to come down? So we went down there, and there was one pup out of the whole litter that literally paid more attention to us until he whipped out that feather. And he whipped out that feather, and that dog just, yeah, he just wouldn't leave that feather alone, kept pointing it out. And the other dogs went back to playing with each other. And I said, well, I'm taking this dog right here. And I said, and he's like, Randy, I don't know. He kept trying to talk me out of that dog. He's like, he don't have the drive. I'm telling you, I've been around enough hunting dogs. You've been around these dogs a lot. I said, I haven't really been around them at all. But I said, I'm telling you right now, I'm taking that dog. That's the dog I want. All the way up to the day that I went and picked up Hank, he tried talking me out of that dog. I'm there to pick him up. And my wife didn't know I was picking him up. She just thought I had a late day at work. She didn't really know I had actually put money down on him. And so I finally get down there, and he was still trying to talk me into taking this other dog. And I said, no, I'm taking this dog right here. That's my dog. And I said, you've been calling him by his name? He goes, he knows it already. So he's like, okay, cool. So yeah, me and Hank left and walked in the house, and my daughter and my wife just about there. My wife didn't even know what to think, you know. She's like, oh my gosh, I guess I'm a dog owner. And but yeah, it was a blast. I mean, gosh, at that time, that was my only friend I had in this whole town. And so he used to go to work with me a couple days a week. And then hunting season rolled around, and he had a little complications with some stuff, and the vet's like, we need to do surgery. And I was like, hunting season starts next week. I go, Ken, are you serious? And he goes, well, yeah. And it's like, oh, I said, how long is he going to be out? And he goes, at least a couple months. And I'm like, you're serious right now? And he goes, I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. He goes, due to what's going on, we can hold off on the surgery, but you're scheduling the surgery right now. I know what day chukar season ends, and you're scheduling that surgery for a day, no longer than a day or two after it. So I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And that was it. Me and that dog, back in those days, I didn't work an hourly wage.
Sure.
I worked a job that was like piecework. So the faster you got done, the faster you got to go hunting. And I met a few people that had land through doing fireplaces and stuff like that. And me and old Hank, literally, we hunted 4 to 5 days a week. I mean, even if I only had an hour of light left, I was running home to grab my dog, and we'd go hit. There was a lady, her name was Sue Dale, one of the sweetest customers I ever had in my life. And she's the reason I coyote hunt too. And but yeah, she had tons and tons of quail. She just had this little 30-acre parcel of land that was all sagebrush and rocks and alfalfa fields, and she'd let me hunt, and we'd go out there. If we only had an hour or two, we'd go hit it up. And but yeah, literally 3-4 days a week, I'd come home with the dog walking in. I'd have a handful of quail, and the wife would be looking at me like, I'm like, oh boy, am I in trouble? She goes, no, but it's kind of getting late for dinner. And I'm like, sorry. I'm like, guess what? You get to eat the quail tonight and the pheasant. I'm like, I'll make chicken for myself. So yeah, I put my wife through the ringer for the first year. I'll tell you that. She never ever complained to me. I'll tell it, not one time. But I knew she was upset on some of those nights just by the look on her face. But she never once complained. So I made compromises as the years gone on. I don't hunt as long. You know, I try to be home at a respectable time. But yeah, those first couple of years, I would hunt from. Well, I didn't have to drive anywhere now. I got used to, when I first started hunting, I had to drive 2-3 hours to get to hunting. Now I drive 15. Now I drive 15 minutes and I'm hunting. So yeah, I used to literally hunt from dark to dark, and just, oh my gosh, how she put up with that, I don't ever know. But
you got to make that time in the field count.
Oh yeah,
Especially when you're driving 3 hours to get there.
Yeah, each one of the dogs though, that's thanks to my wife. That's how they've learned how to hunt. Is that's it. We just go. I don't
Sure.
even think my middle dog Roy. I barely even remember even playing with the wing with him. It was crazy. That dog had so much hunt drive. Oh my gosh, he was he was ridiculous. This dog, and he's been through just about everything. I mean, porcupined, skunked, um,
Oy.
getting cut by barbed
Porcupine's like my
wire,
nightmare.
being
Porcupine is my
accidentally
nightmare.
being accidentally shot. Um,
Oof.
yeah, the dog's been through everything, and he's got to be literally one of the toughest dogs I've ever met in my life. I'm we've had him in situations where we knew birds were down in thick, just nasty stuff that only labs would maybe go down into, and the labs would just sit there looking at us like we were crazy. And here's this 5-month-old pup. We had him out hunting when he was 5 months old, and going straight down into the briar bushes. And I'm looking at my buddy, going, "What am I going to do if he freezes up? If he locks up down there?" And sure enough, we heard the leaves all stop rustling around, and I'm like, he's on point. We can't even see him. And I'm like, so we started finding small pebbles to throw down in these briar bushes, and finally that rooster comes busting out of there. Of course, everybody missed it, but I'm like, the one bird that, because we were all worried about the dog more than anything, and here he comes running out of there. Like, I'm like, how did you go down in that stuff? The labs wouldn't even go down. They're supposed to be the flushers, and here he is in the middle of this stuff, all locked up. Yeah,
Something about a
dog was
bearded dog, man. They just don't give up.
no. He's crazy. The one time that I will honestly say that he got that I accidentally shot him. I didn't even know he didn't even yelp. Didn't he just kept hunting?
That's
He went and picked up my dead
that's
chucker
crazy.
because I had shot a chucker right before him, and then before that happened, I shot a chucker and then missed a chucker, and that was when he stepped out someplace I literally had no clue he was at. You want to talk about the worst day of your life
I
is
mean, that's got to
realizing
be
it.
scary.
Uh, when I realized we hunted for an hour and a half after that. And then it finally got too warm, and we went up to the truck and gave him some water, and he's actually trying to crawl on my lap right now. And gave him some water, and I looked down at his face, and I was like, "What the heck? Why is your eye all red?" I'm like, "That's kind of weird." And he's totally gonna climb right in my lap right now.
That's all right. We're a dog friendly show.
Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, I'm here." And then, of course, I pet him too much, and the Iris needs her attention too. But so yeah, they we that was about the scariest thing that's ever happened to me hunting. Literally, is then realizing you were the one that accidentally did it. I would rather it be
Right.
me accidentally do it than somebody else. So to be honest, I don't I don't think I would want that to ever
Yeah, I
happen.
don't know how I don't know how I would react in that situation. Like that's
No,
not something like that's not a good situation to be in.
no. So yeah, it's was definitely a scary moment. And I've heard. I mean, I took him in. A gentleman wanted to breed him once because of his bloodline, and I was like, I don't know anything about this stuff. But the guy called me up. He actually called me up on Christmas Eve, wanted me to bring him to him on Christmas Eve. I said, I'm with my family. He goes, I really need that dog. My girl, she's in heat like right now. He goes, I'm gonna pay. I'll pay you. And I'm like, oh well, I said, I can bring him to you on Monday. And this was on Saturday. He goes, okay. He goes, are you sure you can't just bring them to me tomorrow? And I'm like, no, it's Christmas Day. And I go, that's even worse than Christmas Eve. And I go like, I said, I promise you, you tell me where you are, and I will get him to you Monday morning. So Monday morning, he had me meet him at the vet, and he wanted to do X-rays and all this stuff to check on him. And that's when he proceeded to tell me, yeah, he's got some BBs in him. I'm going, yeah. I go, it was an accident. He goes, well, I hate to say this. He goes, that's how we used to train our dogs back in the day when they get out too far. And I'm like, what? He
Oh,
goes, oh yeah. He goes, the dog get out too far, you just pepper him. And I'm like, you're serious? And he's like, yeah. And I go, no thanks. I'm like, I don't think I could do that.
No.
I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
He said this old timer told me, he goes, that's what all I go, is my dog gonna be safe with you? He goes, we don't practice that way anymore. I'm like,
I hope not.
oh my Lord. I'm like, I can't even imagine peppering your dog because he's out too far.
No.
That's just crazy. Yeah. So that's, yeah, I don't know. I did
That's a
glad
new
I've
one.
never
I've
seen.
never
I'm
heard
glad
that.
I've never seen that happen. But
That's another thing. I don't know how a situation. If I watch someone intentionally pepper their dog,
uh, I think that'd be the last time with that hunting partner. That's for sure. I
oh,
don't know.
if they're agreed, like if they were with me in my hunting group, they're excommunicated like instantly. Like you're done. Like
Oh
there's no way. Like I will never hunt with you. You will never be around my dog ever.
no, I'll drive their dog home and leave them sitting there.
Pretty much. But like if I saw like some random person
Oh
do that, I don't even know how I'd react.
no, we have wild dogs out on a lot of the pheasant hunting that is done around here is out on the reservation, and there's actually quite a bit of pheasant land out there, but there's a lot of wild dogs out there too. Not coyotes, like where people just end up dumping their dogs. And I've ran into a couple of
Okay.
those, and I'll tell you what, that's scary because I've actually had one come literally coming right at me. Just a
That's
mean
different.
old,
That
yeah, mean old pit bull. I still couldn't do it. I shot the shot in the air. It got about 15 feet away from my dog, and I shot the shot in the air, and it turned and ran. Thankfully, I'm just like, oh my gosh.
turned around because someone else has probably already peppered it.
Yeah, I found a puppy once. That was horrible. We were out pheasant hunting, and I actually found a puppy in the sagebrush. And I just so happened to be hunting with the game warden guy, and I walked down to him. Both my dogs, I was back when one of the days we were hunting with a few people, but we kind of got split up from the other guys, and we had my dogs both locked up on this bush, and I go walking up to it, and I'm like, there's nothing in there. And then they kind of break their point and they start sniffing around the bush. And I was like, what are you guys sniffing at? And I like poke my head in the sagebrush, and there's this puppy in there. And there was not a house anywhere around. I mean, for miles. So it had pus coming out its ears, out its
Oh,
eyes, out its nose. It was pretty much, I called my vet immediately and asked him what to do. And that was horrible. My game warden friend's like, you got to dispatch it, or, and I'm like, are you serious right now? He
no,
goes,
no, no.
if you can't,
He misspoke. That
yeah,
I look back and be like, no, no, you misspoke because you have to
yeah,
dispatch it, not me.
yeah,
You.
that was horrible. So that pup, literally, the vet said the same thing. He goes, Randy, that dog will never make it. There's nothing. He goes, I can tell you over the phone. I took pictures. By
Sure.
that time I had a smartphone, took pictures and sent it to him real quick. And he's like, nope. He goes, don't even bring it in. He goes, we'll just have to put it down right then and there. And I was just like, he goes, that dog's suffering. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, that was a horrible day hunting. Thankfully that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, that's rough. I mean, my
Yeah.
buddy and I, like, we've been doing grouse hunting together for 13 years. I think this was our 13th year of grouse camp, and we've always kind of had a pack. Like, if one of our dogs ever get hurts to that point, like, I know I probably couldn't do it to my own dog. Like, I don't even know if I could do it to his dog anymore. I'm like, I've been around his dog for 14 years now, right? Like,
Yeah.
I love that dog, but like, there's no way as an owner, like, someone's got like, so we've got like that, and I'm just thankful that day has never had to happen.
Yeah. No, I they're my hunting partners. There's no difference from them to my buddy Billy or my buddy Chad or my brother. When it comes to hunting, those dogs are my hunting partners. And each one of the dogs that actually I have hunted with, Um, I have we that have passed, and I have little, like their little, I guess you call it a little urn, and each one of them is in my hunting vest right now. So each one of the hunting dogs I've hunted behind are literally in my hunting vest in my pocket, so they go hunting with me every single time I go.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No.
Like that's a hell of a tribute right there. I mean, it just shows how much they imprint on your life, and like what they like, they're just such a huge part. That bond is so real, and like just like
Yeah.
that, like if you have ever had a hunting dog, like, and if you ever gone through the training and the ups and the downs and the trials and watched the failures and celebrated the successes and like all of that, and like just how much they impact your life, like when they're like, that's the cost of a hunting dog. Like when everyone's like, well, how much does it cost to own a hunting dog? A broken heart. Like that's what it is. Like that's the
Yeah.
true cost. Like the food, the vet bills, those are nothing when at the end of the day, when it really comes down to it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's yeah, there's I can't even explain it. I could sit here and I could probably talk this whole entire podcast just about my dog Hank. I'd probably be bawling a few times here and there because the to me that was the greatest dog in the world. I'm just like, and then my brother's dog, even like my brother's dog, I mean, he didn't even live with me. It was just the
Right.
fact of going hunting and spending that time at camp. And when you did go over to my brother's, oh my gosh, the excitement he would get when he would, when you'd show up and stuff like that. I mean, he did that for everybody, but
Right.
my buddy Billy in Lincoln, oh my gosh, that dog would go crazy when you come walking in the house, and it was just so fun. I mean, the times we've had with these dogs, and it's, yeah, there's nothing like it. you know I That's the one thing, where the little bit of pheasant hunting like this next weekend, now we got the new dog. Well, she'll be two, or she is two, but next weekend in the pheasant hunting, and my wife, I'm hoping to talk the wife into going, and just so she can watch. I call her the princess, so she can watch the princess hunt, and she's actually an incredible dog too. Just, oh my gosh, we to be honest, we didn't really want a dog, but I needed one for hunting because Roy was pretty much done. I was like, you get to that point where he didn't want to stop, I'll tell you that. um but it was, no, enough. Wasn't He was too old to go out, and so I said, I hate to do it, but I got to get another dog. And I think my wife was mad at me even the day me and my daughter went to pick her up. And but now it's like we can't imagine our household without her in it. She's been such a blessing. And the funny thing is now we just realize, like, with her personality and everything, she yeah, she was totally meant to be, and at the right time. So it's like, yep. But I did say I'm not getting it. The two dog household is definitely tough, but sometimes, and then you feel bad. You feel bad. I feel bad every day I go out and I got to leave Roy at home.
Hmm.
It's
I remember that with
it's
my lab when I retired my lab, and
yeah,
I remember the first time I went to grouse camp without him, which is a 5 or 7 day, sometimes an entire week. I think that year I did 10 days straight. Like I took
yeah,
off, and I remember leaving my lab at home, and like his eyes when I left, and Pippa, like my Griff's, like didn't even know what the heck we were doing. Like that was her, like she didn't even know what we were doing. And but my
yeah.
lab knew. My lab knew what he was missing out on, and he was just miserable. My
I
wife
have
took
to.
him for walks. My wife had him in the forest. Like he
Yeah,
had a good time, like in some nature preserves on a leash, but I think he knew what he was missing.
I have to sneak my shotgun out of the house still to this day. Like, I wait for him to be sleeping the night before, and I'll take the shotgun out of the safe, and I'll go put it in the kitchen up on the counter. And because if he even sees the shotgun, it's like he'll start going crazy. My poor wife, she'll be sleeping, and she ain't sleeping no more once I walk out that door and leave him behind.
Sure.
If he sees that gun, nope, she's up at that point. So I did take him hunting on opening day this year, but that was kind of he has a little bit of arthritis in his back end, so sometimes he has trouble with the rear legs wanting to work properly. And so we were a good 20, 30 minutes into our hunt, and that happened, and his rear legs just, I was like, nope, we're going back to the truck, buddy. You're retired.
Yep.
But he got on birds. So,
Well, that's good.
yep.
His last hunt, he got on birds, and
Oh, yeah. That was, yep. Got on birds. And so took him home, retired him, and or took him back to camp and retired him. But yeah,
sure.
it's definitely still tough though, because you get up and leave, in the mornings and go out. And he's been a little better about it I think the last time I went out, the wife the wife just lets him up on the bed, which I don't ever do. She'll pull him up on the bed, and then he's like fine. That's what she used to do with our other dog too. We'd be at hunting camp, and she'd just pull the dog up on the cot, and let
That's
him
funny.
let him sleep with her when I leave him behind.
That he earned it. He earned the comfort in retirement.
Oh yeah, I'll pull back into camp in the mornings. I'll come rolling in it, especially that early season, and I'll come walking. I'm like, what are you doing? You're like, just throw him in the crate. He's just like, are you crazy? He deserves this. And I'm like, oh, I guess you're right. He definitely gets pampered now since he's been sick for about a week, and so that's been a struggle. But he's starting to get around pretty good again. So
well, that's good.
yeah, yep. So
It's always scary when they get to that age and they start to get sick, like something happens, because you never know. Like once they're that old, like you don't know what's like how bad it's going to be.
yeah. Oh yeah. The vet always, like with our first dog, they used to make fun of me. They tease me when I bring him into the vet, because I brought him in for everything. Oh my gosh, it was the first dog I ever spent money on,
Right.
and he was like everything to me, and so they tease me, Randy again, and I'm like, oh, like, sorry guys. He got to the point where he wouldn't even. My vet is awesome, super super awesome guy, and he he didn't even charge me half the time when I brought him in. He'd give him a quick little look over, and Randy, he's good to go, and I'm like, okay. He goes, next time you could just call. I'm like,
You can do this
oh.
over the phone?
It was like somebody with their newborn baby, their first baby they ever had. I'm just like, that's how I was. It was horrible. I was just like, my wife's like, what are you taking him to the vet for this time? It was like, but yeah, it's just I don't know. He sneezed. But and then there would be a couple times where I wasn't gonna take him, and the wife's like, you're taking him. He got. I went hunting on Thanksgiving, the first Thanksgiving we had him, and he must have ran into barbed wire or something, because he got down in this really thick stuff, and all of a sudden I heard him yelp, and I called him, and he came right back out, and I'm like, what'd you yelp for? I'm like, I didn't see really what happened, and got him home. We hunted for a little while. That was actually my last field I was hunting, so. Plus, I didn't want to get in trouble and be late for Thanksgiving dinner. So
Sure.
I'm like, we better get out of here,
Priorities.
Hank. So we get out of there. We head to my my wife's grandparents' house, and come watch. And it was the first thing she noticed. What'd you do to my dog? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, he's got a big old cut. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice that. And I'm like, oh, he'll be fine. And she's like, you're taking him straight to the vet tomorrow morning. And I go, no, I'm not. So she got up and she literally took him to the vet. And she comes back, I told you so. He ended up with like 5 or 6 stitches. I was like, oops. I'm like, I don't know. It looked good to me. I'm like, she goes, all the dumb things you took him to the vet for, and you weren't going to take him for this. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, sorry. I'm like, yeah.
Now I know. Now I
He,
know next time.
like, Now I said, now what am I supposed to hunt next weekend? That was my exact response. She's like, she said they'll be able to come out in less than 2 weeks if you leave it alone and not take them hunting. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm supposed to skip a weekend of hunting. So I'm like, yeah, that was back in the day where missing a weekend of hunting was definitely not something that was
Is that when
happened.
you called you
Yeah.
grabbed the brothers Brittany? Oh,
Yeah.
my dog's on the mend for the weekend. Can I
Yeah.
grab that Brittany? That Brittany wants to go. The Brittany wants to
Yeah.
go. Let me take the Brittany.
If he would have lived over here, I definitely would have did that. Old Henry was a good dog. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny.
That's
How my brother,
awesome.
yeah, it's funny how you treat one dog and then you get the other one too. So, that's, yeah, Iris. Now she's our first girl dog. My brother's first dog was Henry, and now he has a girl dog. Oh my gosh, is she spoiled freaking rotten? Oh, he's like, you just wait till you get your first little baby girl, and I'm like, it's just another dog. I'm like, ain't gonna. Oh no, well, my wife's like, you're just as bad as your brother almost. She's like, I'm I literally, I does. I either call her baby girl or I call her the princess. And my wife's just like, oh my gosh, she's no princess, counter surfer. She is bad with counter surfing. I haven't been able to break her that one yet. But yeah, I'm like, but she don't, here's the best part with her. She doesn't like she doesn't like being yelled at. So she doesn't like being scolded. So you just raise your voice a little bit at her and she goes and lays down. And
Sure.
there she is sticking her nose in my, like, she knows
Hey,
better
you're
than to give
talking
me.
about me. You're
Yeah,
talking about me.
she knows better than to give me kisses too. No kisses. But yeah, she don't like to be, she'll go pout. If you raise your voice at her, she'll go pout. It's pretty awesome. I'm just like, I've never seen a dog act this way. But she's so good. So she really doesn't ever get in trouble other than counter surfing, which
Sure.
I'm like, yeah, we never catch her till it's already over. So
Sneaky.
she's
It's
pretty
that
good at
German
it.
blood. That German
Oh
blood.
yeah. My old dog Hank, he used to do that. So I'd be laying in the recliner and I'd sit there. He'd literally wait for you to fall asleep. And then he'd go sneaking and he'd walk super, super slow into the kitchen.
So you
And
didn't hear the nails on the floor or anything.
oh yeah. And then and he'd keep turning around. And so one time, this is when I finally caught him. I kind of kept my eyes closed like I was sleeping and where I could just barely see him. And caught him all the way to when he went to, he's literally sneaking in there as slow as he can, puts his paws up on the counter as quietly as I can. Iris thinks she thinks she's a lap dog here. About ready to lay down in my lap. But oh yeah, caught him. I'm like, that dog was so smart. And I'm just like, it was just crazy. I'm like, I can't believe you sat there, was that patient about sneaking up on the counter. But
Treats it like bird hunting when you got when you got a rooster starting to run. He's like, all right, I got to be sneaky about this. Got to pin this
yeah,
bird down.
yeah. That dog wasn't the greatest pheasant hunter in the world. I will say that, but man, he could hunt chukars like there's nobody's business. What's the bummer part is his last year. The last year I hunted him, that he was, oh my gosh, he was so unreal. It was every day I took him out. It was like, oh man, I never seen a dog work like that, and just it was so beautiful just to watch. And of course, I just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I've gone through a couple shotguns now, trying to get back to where I could shoot. I finally got one that I'm shooting better. I'm like, I've gone through multiples now, and I'm like, I sold the one shotgun that I used to always hit birds with, and because I'd knocked down a couple big old roosters, and they ended up running on me. And so I said, no way, I'm getting rid of this 20 gauge and I'm going back to a 12 gauge. That was the biggest mistake I ever made, because every gun I've owned since then, I just can't shoot them. And I was like, I finally got a gun I'm starting to get good with again and can shoot birds again. thankfully for Iris. So old poor Hank's like looking at me that I'm doing all this work, and I'm like, I mean, there was days where he'd hold those chukars, which chukars don't like to hold either. They're known for jumping 30, 40 feet out or yards out, you know. And he'd work those birds and hold them, and you're just like, oh my Lord. I'm like, it was literally like magic watching happen. The dog was so amazing on chukars. I always called him the greatest chucker dog in the world, but of course everybody's dog's the greatest dog in the world, right?
Yeah, you definitely have that. Like, I don't say that about mine. I rescued her, and I know like she's amazing for what she is and for how long I've had her. I won't
Yeah,
talk her up that way, I'm a little realistic where I'm like, she ain't perfect. Like,
yeah,
don't even judge the breed by her because she's got some baggage with her, but
yeah,
she's an amazing dog for what I had to work with.
yeah. We're hoping to next year maybe start working Iris. My nephew guides, so he has a guide service, and mostly fishing. But yeah, my nephew runs Markel Outdoors, and they mostly fish. But I think I got him talked into next year doing some cast and blast, and use an Iris, and
Nice.
see how that goes. That's a lot of fun because I have never done it, but I can't imagine it not. The people that tell me about it say it's just amazing. You fish and you're fishing on the river on the Columbia or the Snake, and then you can hear the chukars talking on the hillside. So you jump out when you hear the birds, and I guess you just go hunt them up, and
Interesting.
come back to the boat when you're ready to come back to the boat. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a blast. I'm like, the wife can stay in the boat because she likes to fish more than she ever will like to chukar hunt, and I can just chukar hunt. I'm like,
Sure.
yeah. And that's what they like. They like those rocky, nasty areas. And it's in the water. They got to have the water. Seems like all the birds we hunt mainly find them mostly around water. Some of the places I find the chukars, though, I'm like, gosh, there ain't water anywhere around here. I don't know what you're doing here, but
Huh.
but a lot of times there's usually a river bottom or creek bottoms nearby
Sure.
that they
Sure.
can get to. Yeah, they don't call them the devil birds for nothing. And I've taken quite a few people chukar hunting, and they go one time, and don't ever come back. It's like, whoops, sorry.
That was a little much for the first time. A little
Yeah,
much.
I was like, you could have warned me about it. I'm like, what? Well, I don't know what to tell you. They like to run uphill all day. I try to find spots to start out in the morning where you're kind of starting out up high, and I know where to hike to certain area, and kind of work into the day that way, and then
Sure.
start get your legs going and get the blood pumping a little bit, and then go start hitting the harder stuff. But wow, it is what it is. If you're in shape, you can do it. It's I know a lot of people call it the extreme hunting for it. Trust me, I hear some stories about other ptarmigan. I've never done that, and I hear that's pretty extreme. And then there's another bird called the snowcock, Himalayan snowcock, and they sit up like over. I've listened to quite a few podcasts on those, and they're up around 10, 11, 12,000 feet.
That's
The
hot.
guy,
That's
yeah, the guys.
ruh-roh. We lost you, Randy, if you can hear me.
There we
Oh,
go.
there you are. Now you're back again. Had to
Yeah,
plug that phone back in.
those guys with the Himalayan snowcocks, they don't even use dogs. They like hike in and they hike up to those heights, and then they literally just hike around and scout for them and try to listen for them, I guess, and
Interesting.
and then try to do literally a spot and stalk on them. I'm like, that kind of sounds like it could be fun, but I think I'd still want to bring my dog.
I miss the dog. There's no doubt in
Yeah,
my mind I'd miss my dog.
I think that's a
Because
huge portion of why I even do do this. A lot of it is about the dog. I mean, I got into it not with the dog, but once I added the dog to the mix, that's when the addiction set in. That's for sure.
Agreed. Agreed, 100%. That's where everything changed.
Oh my gosh, it's my that and the people I've surrounded myself with that that helped me even get along this pathway of hunting. I didn't hunt until I was 24 years old, and it was my younger brother who actually invited me to go hunting. And I literally looked at him and go, I don't know if I can even shoot a deer. And he's like, well, guess you don't know if you don't go. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, do I go buy a rifle? I didn't even know what to do. And I had a buddy who was from Montana, and he goes, I'm going back home here in a week or so. I'll see if my dad will let you borrow my hunting rifle. I was like,
Sure.
okay. So he brings home this 30-30 lever action, no scope, trying to shoot mule deer with a 30-30 lever action at like 400 yards. I found out that I could shoot at a deer, but at 400 yards with iron sights, it wasn't really going to work out too well. But
that was a quick lesson right there. This doesn't work.
oh yeah, I'll never ever ever forget that weekend. Those were sleeping in a pup tent on the ground. I don't know if I ever been so cold in my life. I was just, but boy, what a great time we had. It was amazing. That was our first week. I think it was my very first weekend ever hunting. And we had, oh gosh, I actually ran almost, I didn't never seen an elk before in my whole life. And I'm like, there's this huge bull elk 50 yards from me, just bugling away, just screaming. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, awesome. That is the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, holy crap. I literally thought it was a deer. So I snuck over to the next tree, and there was 3 more. And I'm going, oh my God. I'm like, there's no way that's a deer. And I luckily, for my sake, I did not shoot it. Oh, this is some dumb little city boy that didn't. I mean, first morning out, my brother's just literally, here, you're going to walk up this hill, and you're going to go sit up there. You're going to come through a clearing, and you're going to get out of the clearing and sit on the hills on sit underneath the tree up on the other side of that clearing. I'm like, okay, cool. I can do that. No problem. I'm like, I go, what's an elk look like? And he goes, they're huge. Why? And I go, well, I almost shot one. And I was like, I had no clue what it was. And I was like, but I knew it was too big to be a deer. He goes, oh my gosh, are you serious? And I go, well, at least I didn't. Yeah. I decided not to. It just seemed a little too big. And I was like, so yeah, that was my very first morning out, but I'll never forget that either. I mean, that big bull was just screaming away, and to get to witness something like that on your very first morning out, oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was super fun. We must have hiked all day back in those days too. I mean, all day long. Go back to camp for lunch and go right back out and just hiking those hills. And I guess we're where we started deer hunting and where we do, it's kind of, I call it it's kind of like the foothills to the Cascades, I guess it would be. Okay. I mean, some people kind of say we're high desert. I don't really, it's kind of like, I mean, we're not super high here where we're at, but we kind of get that same weather though. Like, I mean, we get a lot of sunshine and it gets hot. But I know, like where my grandmother lives, my aunt and uncle, they're definitely high desert. They're at like 2,700 feet, and it's definitely different than, because at night it at least cools down there. They'll have 90-degree days and wake up in the morning it's 50.
Yeah, those desert temperature swings are crazy. like when I was in Arizona racing back in a previous life, I used to do off-road racing for a race team, and like that sand just doesn't hold heat. Like it'll
Yeah,
be blazing hot during the day, and all of a sudden that sun goes away, and it's like someone turned off the furnace.
yeah, yeah. No, it's
Crazy out there.
as soon as the sun goes down at grandma's house, that it the you better go put on a long sleeve t-shirt in it. It's just, oh my gosh, I love that weather. I'd probably be living there, but there's no bird hunting really around there. They say you got to go drive hours to get to it, and I'm like, oh, I
No,
already lived
no,
that. I lived that lifestyle once. I'm not going back to it. I,
I wouldn't either. I
I
wouldn't
told
either.
I told my wife we have rules. I said I can't live in a state that doesn't have chukar or mule deer. If it don't have chukar or mule deer, I can't live there.
And I don't want to be an hour from them either.
No, exactly. We don't have the greatest deer hunting in the world around here, but I can still go deer hunting, in
Sure.
30 minutes from my house, or chukar hunting or coyote hunting and stuff like that now. I mean, yeah, geez, you
Just
go
good.
some,
I mean, it's nice to live close enough where you can just get outside, like
yeah,
have something to pursue and some sort of passion that's close enough where you can just get after. Like you don't need to invest an entire day's worth of driving to go out there and do it.
yeah. No, that part's definitely a blessing. Definitely a blessing. And yeah, I can't say enough to have my wife be my wife and put up with my BS because, um, yeah, I've asked, hey, can I go hunting tomorrow? And I usually will get chewed out for asking. So, yeah, my wife is, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine not having her. That's for sure. Be back to somebody complaining at you for hunting all the time, I guess. Like, my wife leaves me, I'm just going to stay single. It'll just be me and the dog. Life will be way easier.
Uh, uh, that's funny.
I
I think
can't
that's a.
believe.
I was going to say. I think that. I mean, we're at an hour and a half here, so I think that's
Okay.
probably. I thanking the wives for letting us chase these crazy birds and have our dogs is probably a good point to start wrapping this one up.
Yeah, no problem. You're going to have to, there's a open invitation for you. This season's almost over, but next year you come out anytime you want. We'll show you chukar hunting.
I'm gonna. I don't. I'm not sure if I'll take it up. I'm gonna take you up on it eventually.
Yeah, no, that's
My
just that.
dog's like to the point of almost being retired. I'd love to bring a younger dog out there to do it with my
Yeah,
own dog. But if has to get retired and I can't bring in another dog yet, then maybe I would take off and go hunt over your dogs because I
yeah,
won't be able to hunt over my own. So I'm going to take you up on it. I just don't know if
yeah,
it'll be this year or maybe next year.
yep. Nope. Anytime that door's open,
Same to you. If you ever want to come
we'll,
out this way and chase them northern Wisconsin grouse and woodcock,
yeah, be fun. It'll be fun. It's a good time. We'll get the guys around, and like I said, I've put myself around a select few that are there's a reason they're my friends, and there's a reason we hunt, and and it's just, oh my gosh, that's just the greatest time in the world. I know that.
agreed. It's all about the friends, the traditions, the experience, the dogs, all of it put together. It's just that's what drives me. And I can tell that's also what drives you. It's that entire, it's not the killing of the bird, it's everything that goes along with it.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I
Well,
can care
Randy,
less if I get the bird, but
right. As long as the dog got to chase it and I got to watch my dog work, I'm a happy guy, whether the bird falls or not, to be honest.
yeah, yeah,
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I know you've got an Instagram account. So if you want to let everybody know what that is, or I can if you don't know what it is off the top of your head.
nope. It's wired for birds.
So
Um,
everyone listening, go give him a follow. I'll link it in the show description as well, so you can see what it's like with his bearded dogs out in Washington.
yeah. Thank you very much for the invite to do this. I
It was good.
appreciate it.
It
It's
was a
been
really
fun.
fun show. Just hanging out, chatting, talking life. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
really good way to start off the new year's. Just sharing experiences, and it's a good show. Like
yeah,
this was a fun one.
yeah. Great. Be awesome. I know my family's looking forward to it.
That's great. That's
My
awesome.
nephews are like, "What? You're gonna do it?" I'm just like, "Oh yeah." So yeah, they'll all be excited. They're like, somebody that hunts like you do, Uncle Randy, deserves to, do something like this, or it was gonna be so fun. So yeah, they were
Awesome.
super excited. So all right, well, I'll let you go.
I appreciate you coming on. To all my listeners, thanks again for tuning in to the first episode of my show for season 6 on Paddle and Fin. And until next time, keep chasing that experience.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode here on Paddle and Fin. Be sure to drop a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, or smash that subscribe button on any platform you're listening in on. Be sure to check us out on Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. Make sure you sign up for the Fantasy Kayak Fishing League at paddleandfin.com/fantasy. You could support this show through Patreon, patreon.com/paddleandfin. Don't forget to check out the website, paddleandfin.com. Catch us on YouTube. If you got a question, comment, or want to see a future guest on the show, be sure to email us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Shout out to our show supporters, Yak Gadget. You can check out all the fine kayak accessories at yakgadget.com. Pelican Professional. For all your cases, coolers, and lighting needs, go to pelican.com. Rocktown Adventures, your Midwest premier paddle sports destination. Go to rocktownadventures.com. Eastport Marina, the beautiful destination on Dale Hollow Lake. If you're looking for lodging, kayaks, kayak accessories, or anything fishing related on the beautiful Dale Hollow Lake, go to eastport.info. And Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and fill your tackle boxes today.